Korean history writing. The first Kim Hwal-ran, so-called, it is called, or it is recognized in other places, Helen Kim. I'm not going to describe her life, but I want to describe some episode about, these people. Since 1997, all these people actually, I did some research for my study. Since 1997, I have been searching for answer to the question of how to understand the modern desire and social political ideas of Korean women intellectuals of the 20th century who experienced colonialism, Korean War, and the building of a South Korean nation state based on anti-communism. Ewha Women's University, where I work, was founded in the 1887 by an American missionary. In 1936, Kim Hwal-ran became the first Korean president of Ewha Women's University. Since then, Ewha has been run by Koreans and grown into the largest women's university in the world. Kim Hwal-ran laid the groundwork for Ewha's rise and left a significant legacy in Korean women's education. In 1999, making the 100th anniversary of Kim Hwal-ran's birth, Ewha Women's University tried to establish the Kim Hwal-ran Award, but failed to do so due to protest by the Ewha Student Council and nationalist group outside the university. The reason for the protest was that Kim, while being an influential women leader in colonial period, gave a speech urging the Korean youth to cooperate with the Japanese imperialism and join the Japanese military in the late colonial period. At the time, Japan was putting all of the energy into the war, and there was a tremendous amount of pressure on Korean intellectuals to cooperate. In 1948, the Ewha campus was temporarily occupied by the Japanese army, which stationed itself there for a short period of time. Korean intellectuals at the time, including Kim Hwal-ran, had no way of guessing that the colonial situation would be ended anytime soon. As president of Ewha, Kim was in position of having to protect the school and keep providing education to the students. But seen from the perspective of the liberated South Korea in 1997, all intellectuals who had not fought for national liberation and independence were Japanese collaborators. In 1998, a public hearing was held on the establishment of the Kim Hwal-ran Award. Among those in attendance were an alumna who was over 80 years old, an American citizen now, who had been a student at Ewha in the early 1940s, a man who had been a colleague of Kim Hwal-ran back in the day, a college professor, the president of Ewha Student Council at the time, the 1998, and the director of the Institute of Research about Collaboration Activists. All these people attended in the hearing. An alumna who was over 80s recalled that Kim Hwal-ran had given the speech by reading a draft written by someone else because she could not speak Japanese, and that she had been greatly distressed by it, but that she had also said it was kind of a theatrical performance. But what I'm saying is actually, anyway, the Kim Hwal-ran Award failed, but there's a lot of controversies. The Kim Hwal-ran Award should be made or not. But actually, all these people criticize Kim Hwal-ran as well as Ewha. So Ewha could not celebrate Kim Hwal-ran. So in Korea, Yonsei University and Korea University, which are famous private schools and have a long tradition like Ewha, had also been the target of Japanese collaboration controversy. The founder of Korean University, Kim Sung-soo, and the first president of Yonsei University, Baek Nak-jun, are both on the list of pro-Japanese collaborators. But whereas their pro-Japanese activities have been chiefly dealt with in relation to themselves and their families, Kim Hwal-ran has always been judged in relation to Ewha Women's University. The process of submitting documents on Kim's pro-Japanese collaboration is also being administered by Ewha Women's University. She was never married and single, devoting her life to the Ewha Women's University. Because of that, Ewha's life, the Kim Hwal-ran's life, and then Ewha's life are identical. So this is the first episode. And the second episode is about the Hye-Seok. As a college professor, I changed my syllabus for a course on feminist theory for the first time after learning about Hye-Seok. Na was the first Korean Western painter, a writer, as well as a believer in women's liberation. Since then, I have launched questions raised by Na in teaching the history of feminism. Yu Dong-jun, who was a successful businessman, wanted to launch a project of commemorating a historical figure who had come from his hometown, Suwon. Having been a lover of literature in his youth, Yu Dong-jun selected Na Hye-seok for his project. He created Na Hye-seok's Memorial Foundation, under which an academic conference was held every year. He wished to shed light on Na Hye-seok not only as a talented individual, artist, writer, and new woman, but also as a pioneer who was ahead of her time and a nationalist who helped the independent fighter by using her husband's power as a vice consul in Manchuria in colonial period. Yu Dong-jun wanted to be the sponsor that she never had. In the beginning, he financed the conference with his own money and personally contacted all academics in diverse fields to give a presentation about Na Hye-seok. It was owing to his businessman's dedication that Na Hye-seok, unlike other new women in Korea, has become the topic of various academic research. I also began to study Na Hye-seok in earnest after being invited as a presenter to one of those conferences. I was taken by surprise in the early 2000s when I read what Na Hye-seok had published during 1917 to 1934. The question that she had asked were the same ones being asked now by Korean feminists, and also those asked by her contemporaries like Virginia Woolf, Simone de Beauvoir, and the Japanese Harajuku Raicho. It even brought me to question whether women evolve at all. In some sense, all these people, and then even contemporary feminists, had the same questions. But answers that Na Hye-seok could give herself were dependent on her relationship with her local intellectual group, that with her women colleagues who were also interested in questions about women and the amount of knowledge accessible to her. Women intellectuals of the West analyzed why women could not become modern human beings by criticizing the idea of male intellectuals and tapping into other women's experiences. But Na Hye-seok dealt with the same question in relation to her own experiences. While studying in Japan, she argued that women are educated modern beings and human like men. But after marriage and childbirth, she tried to solve the problem of having to carry out her gender role while being the same human being as a man. But she was unable to find a satisfactory answer. And through her experience of traveling the West, extramarital affairs and divorce, she arrived at the conclusion that woman had to be a different human being from a man based on their sexual differences. Na Hye-seok criticized and fought against the feudal institution of a family and a male-female relationship, as well as Confucian ideologies discriminating against women. So in some way, what I'm saying is, Na tried to struggle to solve problem. Women should be a human being in modern sense, but how the women who have different different sexes can be a same human being. So struggling, between women and modern men. That is kind of a question she struggled. But she reached the conclusion after divorce, actually, and after abandoned, after ostracized in the society. Women are different beings. Women and men, they should be a human being based on their sexual differences. The first Western painter in Korea, Hye-Seok received many prizes at national art exhibitions in Korea and Japan during the colonial period. Since staying in Japan, where Western modernity was being imitated, did not offer her enough challenges, now planned to go on a trip around the world with her husband in 1928 and 1929, wishing to witness Western modernity with her own eyes and perhaps get answer to the questions plaguing her all her life. She writes that she had always wanted to travel the West, where she hoped to get answer to the following 4 questions. First, how must a person live life? Second, how can a man and a woman live together peacefully? Third, what is the proper status of a woman? Fourth, what are the
5 minutes.
essential of painting? In her modern self-awareness, Hye-Seok was undoubtedly thinking that the answer to her question lay in the West, where progress and enlightenment had originated. After having visited Europe and America, she writes that the answers were there to a certain extent. Reflecting strong Western modern centeredness of intellectuals in the modernization process of a colonial era, this shows the framework of Hye-Seok's thought as firmly based on colonial modernity. So, without examining this aspect, it is very difficult to understand, the colonial intellectuals, I think. But actually, when she got divorced, actually the reason was she had an affair, the extramarital affair and these things. And she was abandoned by her husband. And then her brother abandoned too. And after that, society turned its back on her. So she was banished from society and disappeared, dying without anyone noticing. Actually, so this, I wanted to a little bit pragmatize the relationship, the Hye-Seok and man in that period of time. I don't have time, but I want to a little bit mention about the Yun-suk. Yeah, this is a...
1 to 2 minutes?
Important because the Yun-suk, she played a very important role in Eastman's nation building, and in 1945, with Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the American and UN forces came to be stationed in South Korea. And then in 1948, the South Korean Constitutional Assembly election was held, after which the South Korean government was established. Actually, in that process, there was an Indian diplomat, Menon, chair to the UN Temporary Commission on Korea, who actually made the approval for South Korea the Constitutional Assembly election possible. So in that process, actually, Yun-suk was a friend of Menon, got involved. So when, if you go to Google and then Wikipedia about Yun-suk, it is said that Yun-suk is